All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about actually managing your campaign. And there's a million ways, like everything else here, to get further into the detail. The two important points we're going to talk a little bit about is managing your team and managing yourself as the candidate. So, Aaron, you want to talk a little bit about some of the important aspects of managing your team during this incredibly grueling and insane process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, managing your team very much depends on what kind of team you have. And I think that, to the degree that you can surround yourself with uh, friends, advisors, volunteers who have some campaign experience, if you're running in a bigger race, you know, you're going to want to hire a consultant. You're going to want to have somebody who's paid, who's kind of helping direct your priorities and your efforts, and diving much deeper into some of these topics than we have here. And so, depending on your this team makeup, you're going to have to do more managing or less managing. I think my advice would be to try to bring in someone who's pretty disciplined and organized and has some experience, who's going to do a lot of the managing for you. Because as a candidate, really, managing and organizing is a lot of additional work, and you need to be focused on fundraising and the message and talking to stakeholders and things that only you can do as the candidate, right? Think about it. Think about building your team in terms of what are the things that only I can do as the candidate, and what are the things that are replicable that others can do. And you should always try to have others doing those things. So that's a word on the kind of team that you need. Um, but then as far as managing them, yeah, I mean, you need to keep people engaged, and I think the best way to keep team members engaged is by having regular calls. Maybe you have a regular call with your closest advisor weekly, and you have a regular call with a smaller group of 5 people, and then you have a monthly call with a group of 20 volunteers that are really invested in you, or you have a fundraising committee and you do regular calls with them. However you want to structure it, I think that getting people to commit to convening on a regular frequency is helpful. Sending out campaign updates to your list of
Mhm.
volunteers, staff, supporters once a week, to say, here's what we're doing, here are the priorities, here's what everybody's working on, here are the wins, here's where we need to do better. I think is another helpful way to manage and keep people engaged. And then, Alex and I have a lot of experience working with project management software, because email can get really overwhelming. So I recommend, with all of these various buckets, there's a lot of tasks that come alongside all of them, and a lot of deadlines. And if you're fundraising and you're hiring and you're communicating, you want to kind of try to keep track of all these things in an organized space. So maybe trying an Asana or a Monday.com type of tool, or a Trello, to keep yourself organized, and keep your team organized. Not such a bad idea.
No, I mean, the importance of communication among your team can't be understated here. I mean, people are really they're buying into not just a company with a product, right? They're buying into you and your vision. And that's such a big ask to do. The least you can do as the candidate is making sure that you're keeping them all totally in the loop and informed about what's going on. And that's really something that you want to, we talked about this in the earlier stages. When you think about kind of what kind of leader, what kind of manager you're going to be, that's something that you're going to need to do when you get elected as well. And so, if that's something that you think you might have trouble with on the campaign, make sure you get up to speed there before the campaign, so that you can run it well during the campaign and run it well when you are in the elected position as well.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I think that that's all a very good segue into managing yourself. Your your enthusiasm, your motivation, your ability to motivate others, like that is fundamental to everything else that we talked about today. And really, I think that you need to have people that you're surrounding yourself that can keep you positive. I think that more often than not, the campaign's going to be really hard. Um, and it's always going to feel, excuse me, in a local race where you don't have a lot of paid help, it's always going to feel like you're behind on stuff.
Hmm.
Surround yourself with people that can ground you in the priorities, help you keep those priorities straight, help keep you positive, and then embody that, like be that positive person externally when you're talking to volunteers and supporters and donors, because otherwise, I mean, you're just, if you can't um, come off like you're having a good time, even if you're not, then it's like a house of cards that just comes crumbling down.
It's true, and it's so grueling. It's easy to lose sight of that, especially in some of these campaigns. If you're challenging the status quo, which we hope anybody watching this video is that's what you're doing, it's going to be tough because it's going to be opposed. And not only are you necessarily going to be opposed, but you might be opposed by sort of the majority. You might have some real institutions that are pushing back against what you're doing. There's going to be people who don't want you to get power. There's going to be people who don't want you to win, who don't want you to talk about those issues. And they are going to employ tactics that sometimes are not particularly ethical, not particularly friendly, to try and dissuade you, discourage you, try to get in your head, try to convince people that you're not the right person. You're going to see that. And that's one of the things I know I've heard from people that they're the most worried about when running for office is kind of what's going to happen to kind of their name and their reputation throughout these. And you've got to go into this being prepared that it's going to be difficult in those ways. And it's a difficulty with an unbelievably worthwhile reward, but it is still difficult, especially when you're in the middle of it and you're going to sleep at 11, 12 o'clock and waking up at 5, 6 a.m. to start the same thing over again. And you're going back in and making the calls, and you're doing this day in and day out.
And
Uh,
dealing with some really negative people,
yeah,
dealing with some people that are going to tell you that you're wrong, and dealing with people that are gonna grab on to some minor detail, or something that is totally irrelevant to like the bigger mission, but they're going to use it to bring you down. And you got to respond to them with a smile. You got to respond to them with kindness, and understanding, and you got to hear them out. And that can be really demoralizing and frustrating, but you got to do it. And if you can't do it well, you're not going to succeed.
right. And all of those things are going to be harder if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not getting exercise, if you're not maybe talking to somebody on a regular basis about the experience, an objective third party who's going to, kind of be, I don't know, be a stabilizing force throughout all of this chaos. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. I know when I was running and in the beginning of being in office, I let so many of those things slip. So many parts of my life that I just didn't really organize the right way. And that is going to have that's going to have a detriment on you. And so make sure you're doing that. And make sure, like Aaron said, you're surrounding yourself with people that are going to hold you to that. Creating an accountability group of your closest friends or advisors or family members who can help keep you motivated, so that you can help keep everybody else motivated, is really, really important to do. Because again, at the end of the day, if you're not in it to that maximum degree, how could you expect anybody else to be? So all of that is really important. And just remember, everybody's going to be stressed. Everybody's going to be going through these things. And, part of your job as the candidate is to keep all of those people motivated. So make sure you understand what's going to keep you motivated, and keep you on track throughout this. Is there anything else you wanted to add on the kind of managing the team or yourself front, Aaron?
No, I think that's good.
So we really hope this has been valuable for folks watching. Again, hitting some of the highlights in these different areas. We hope this gives, especially people that are kind of coming from outside the system, a chance to get a foothold, and get in the race and talk about the things that you really want to talk about. So we really appreciate you watching, and let us know if there's anything that you heard today that you really wanted us to go into more detail about. Let us know what you think about that, and stay tuned for some of in our next series. We talk a little bit about what things look like as you get closer to election day. So, Aaron, thank you again for not only kicking me and my friends literally in our bodies while we were trying to sleep through getting up and getting out there during the campaign, but for bringing some of your expertise here and experience working on dozens of campaigns
Of course, happy to do it.
in the
Happy to
time.
do it.
So,
This was
yeah,
great.
thank you. And all right, we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks again for joining us.